Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Hi, I'm Gavin, or Battlefield Bricks on Instagram and YouTube, and this is my World War II display. Sorry, we start off here with the fall of France in 1940. I'm very inspired by a lot of the Battlefield franchise games here. I have a house that I've got and a Spitfire coming in to take a strafing run at a Panzer IV that is designed by BrickSlopes. Like to do a lot of nature scenes and a little bit of architecture. I think trees are really one of my fortes, and I love putting different kinds of trees in there.
Yeah, that tree in the back right corner just looks fantastic and very realistic with the way all those branches are kind of coming off there and just starting to wrap around the house.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to make them as random as possible for my big oak trees. Gives them a nice lifelike feel to them.
And I like, even though it's not the focus of the build, this kind of like garage over here with that blue vehicle coming out.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to have something that would kind of hide the support of the Spitfire that's flying above, while also kind of serving a purpose into the mock. I've had this Renault OSO truck for a little over a year-ish now, and I wanted to build it and put it in something, and I think this is a great place to put it.
And then what were your techniques on the house itself?
So for the house itself, it's pretty simple, just straight brick construction with some snot windows that are some of the vented kind of pieces out on their side to give a shutter effect. And the door design is from Bartha's Brick on Instagram, and I wanted to kind of break up the roof to give it an interesting shape, cutting off the corners and giving them that triangle shape and adding in some dormer windows as well.
And one of the interesting things here is, so this uses kind of a natural border, and we see a variety of approaches with that. Some of these have more kind of a standard black border, so how do you kind of decide with each of these scenes?
So these are actually all weekly builds that I do for a podcast called Bricking with the Beard. So just kind of whatever pieces I have available at the time, whether I want to do a freeform border for a larger scale or just a small, simple black border with some tile on it to kind of cleanly wrap up the build.
Fantastic. And we've got our next battle then?
So here we have the outskirts of Stalingrad. I have German forces setting up a Pack 40 position that is designed by Parabellum Bricks. Got some Russians coming to overtake the position, full firing in effect, and trying to take out them through hand-to-hand combat and their PPSH machine guns.
And where did you get the minifigs for these various scenes from?
Various different sources, a lot from TMC, Angel Bricks, Parabellum Bricks, Brick Fabric, Valiant Bricks, and Forest Moon Bricks as well.
Okay. And here you work in a very different color scheme with kind of the browns and whites, and even a little bit of kind of frozen, kind of clear bricks under there?
Yeah, I tried to give it kind of a more muddy effect for where the soldiers would be walking around a lot and kind of moving stuff, and more slopey snow hills for where they're not going to be actively walking around as much there.
And what's our next battle then?
Next we have the Battle of Narva, 1944. Kind of similar to the Fall of France, where it's just a single house, but tried to do some more trees and got some trench coats from Capes for Minifigs, and I thought they worked really well in adding in kind of an extra layer of clothing for these SS soldiers here, and as a Tiger I passes by, that's designed by Panzer Brick Labs as well.
And the Tiger I looks incredible. The Panzer Brick Lab stuff designs are always really neat. But then the house is really cool too, especially how you've kind of added that snow effect on top of the roof.
Thank you. Yeah, I tried to do a lot of snot techniques with this house, with a lot of dark red tiles on their sides to give it that wood paneling effect, and same with the windows being kind of rotated in a different orientation to give them a more vertical feel to the glass panes.
And one of my favorite kind of subtle Lego building techniques is when people put like vehicle tracks or sort of minifig footprints, because it adds such a great level of detail in a build.
Thank you. Yeah, especially for scenes like snow or for mud and stuff, it's really nice to see where minifigs have been or where vehicles have been driving around. And I think that this kind of road going by this house here and all the footsteps for the minifigs showing where they've been walking around really adds some life to the build.
And both of these last two scenes have a nice example of some of the more kind of barren type trees. So what are some of the pieces you use there as you kind of are trying to not make it look too big and lifelike?
Yeah, so for these trees, I try and forego any kind of 3-leaf elements or making them bushy at all. So they're just the 5x6, I believe, limb elements on some brown flex tube. And then I also like to use the brown zipline pieces just wrapped around that trunk to give it some kind of like more texture and like branches coming off in different directions effect.
And then where do we go to next here?
Next, we have some D-Day preparations, the morning of June 6th, 1944. I've always wanted to have a P-51 in my collection, so I went ahead and designed one. The Willys Jeep and the Deuce and Half oil service truck are Carpet Lego and Hunter A. Clark, respectively. But I wanted to have a little scene of a P-51 getting refueled here and getting rearmed and ready for another soiree over the fields of France.
What are the chrome elements from? How did you make those?
Oh, so I followed an online tutorial on how to just kind of get a chromed build. It's a just Rust-Oleum spray paint that gives it a nice chrome effect.
And even some of the bombs there as well?
Yeah, so those are also just going to be some Rust-Oleum spray paints as well to get a nice smooth finish on them.
And I like the subtle patterns kind of in the groundwork too. So you've got some of those tiles there and it's not just kind of a flat gray.
Yeah, definitely wanted to give a little bit of depth to it instead of just flat light gray. The airfields definitely had some grout in the tile work, in the pavement of the airfields.
And we go to a very different scene next.
Yeah, so Marine howitzer position. Wanted to at least have some Pacific representation. Don't have too many figures or vehicles for this, but I think it's a nice little scene depicting some Marines that have just landed on a beach and setting up their howitzer position to start firing on whatever lies on the inside of the jungle.
And I like how you've done this with just kind of the block of layering and you get the different levels of like ground underneath the soldiers.
Yeah, it was a different kind of challenge I wanted to take for this mock. Each of them have different borders, of course, so this one I was like, it's going to be the smallest of the bunch. Might as well kind of raise it up a little bit and show some depth to the ground that's underneath them.
And what do we have next then?
Next, we've got some British forces taking a Flak 38 position. This is one of my favorites personally, just because of the wheat field technique I was able to get here, and I think the Churchill, designed by Panzer Brick Labs, fantastic work as always, coming through and trying to take on the Flak 38, which is by Budget Builds. Yeah, I think it just turned out really fantastic for this one.
What is that wheat field technique? What are some of the elements used there?
So they're just the three-pronged flower elements with the stud on the bottom, so the older mold, with a bunch of the tan Technic half axle, half pin connection points on them. You just kind of set them down and they're loose on there, but gives that nice wavy effect to it.
I really like how you've kind of buried the soldiers in the field, so it feels very immersive, like they're having to like fight their way through there.
Oh yeah, definitely have a little bit of cover sneaking up on this position over here and see the shots bouncing off the Churchill as they try and take it out, but I don't think the Germans have a good chance there.
What are these arms you've got on some of the minifigures?
Oh, they're from Get Crazy Bricks. They're pretty fantastic. You can get some great minifigure poses without having to use like sticky tack or rubber bands or anything. Only downside is you can't get the printing on them that some of the figures do have, but you get some great poses of them surrendering or lying lifeless or all of these great poses.
And where does that take us to next?
That takes us to the Allied advance through Italy. Just wanted to have a small bridge scene to showcase both of the Shermans that I've decked out. Panzer Brick Labs, fantastic designer. He got me these a little bit early so I could deck some out, do some mocks with them. I think they turned out fantastic. I really tried to have as many soldiers packed onto them, have all the crew coming out of the hatches, and all the field gear attached to it as well.
And that the bridge itself is really nice, and just kind of some of the subtle details you were able to include there.
Oh yeah, thank you. I wanted to try and get a bigger arch and a smoother arch than just the Lego arch pieces that they have, so I ended up trying to do a snot slope technique where it's all upside down under there. And I want to try and separate the rocks from the tank, so I used the old dark gray pieces instead of dark bluish gray to try and give them a little bit more of a greenish kind of yellow feel to them.
And then all of that tan and kind of olive green kind of sets it off as well.
Oh yeah, I think the palette all really works together with the tanks and especially the tan minifigures. It kind of gives it this kind of almost bleak kind of feel to it.
And in the next scene, you've really leaned into the tree building techniques on this one.
Oh yeah, tons of different trees on this one. I really wanted to have a little pop of color with this, so I tried to have as much yellow as I could without distracting from the overall just pine forest feel of Hurtgen. This one was really fun to do. I've got a half track by Militaristic Bricks, and the M18 Hellcat is from Panzer Brick Labs again. Got a situation where the Germans have already surrendered and given up this position, and the Americans are taking some hostages here and also pushing forward into the Hurtgen forest.
I really like the detail of setting off the bunker at kind of like an angle. So whenever you can get things that are kind of square structures but put them at an angle, it makes it feel more realistic.
Yeah, for most of my man-made structures, I try and offset them at some sort of angle to give the build a little bit of dynamic feeling, especially with roads or houses. They're all on their different little offsets, but yeah, I definitely think it adds a little bit to the build, and there's not really many straight lines, especially in nature. So when we build stuff on it, it's not going to be straight lines.
What was your approach with this tree on the left down here?
This tree down on the left, that's a bunch of Travis bricks or 1x1 snot bricks with studs on all sides, and a bunch of the 1x1 top clip pieces. Those are on the pick a brick at lego.com, and you can just stack as many of those together and you can make a tree as big as you would like.
Fantastic scene, and I think that takes us to the final one in the timeline.
Yeah, so final here we have the downfall of Berlin. This was the only mock project for the weekly build series that took 2 weeks. I decided to have the U-Bahn or the subway underneath be the first section of the project, and then the streets above would be the second part. The T-34-85 and the Mercedes-Benz. The T-34 is from World War II MC, and the Mercedes is from Budget Builds on Instagram. Both fantastic designers, and I think they add a lot of life to the builds.
Using the sort of like shutter piece on the side of the Mercedes-Benz is really cool.
Oh yeah, it adds some great, like really subtle detail and a smaller scale that you can't really achieve with any other kind of pieces.
What did you have to do to make sure that structurally things were going to stay up here above the subway there?
Oh, so there's a couple of support pillars underneath there, and besides that, it's just a lot of plates stacked on top of each other, but it's all also upside down construction underneath there because I wanted to have that 1x1 tile pattern connect onto the ceiling there to try and give that really completed feel to it.
Yeah, it's just no matter which level you look at, it's packed with detail. You've got the building itself then too kind of falling apart.
Oh yeah, Berlin was definitely bombed a ton during the war, and I wanted to represent that. So I have the corner of this building blown out here with some rubble pushed aside on the street and a big blockade of some normal German soldiers and some Volkssturm coming to protect the city and hopefully push off the invaders that are definitely going to win.
And how did you achieve this road technique with all those 1x1 tiles?
Oh, so those are just a bunch of 1x1 snot bricks stacked on their side to give that kind of little offset or gap in between each of those tiles. I think gives a kind of good pseudo cobblestone look or a not totally paved road, but in the older style that Europe was.
It's fantastic how you've captured so many different, battles throughout World War II here. I think it's really cool kind of how you've done the timeline. Were there other battles you wanted to depict or things you have planned for the future?
Yeah, I definitely want to explore the Pacific more. Definitely want to try and maybe move into the Sino-Japanese War. I think would be an interesting topic to jump into, but I've still got probably another 20 builds left in this year to get through, but they'll just come to me as they come, I guess.
Yeah. And for people who want to see more of your work online, where are you most active and how do those kind of build videos work that you were talking about?
So I'm most active on my Instagram at Battlefield Bricks, but I also do larger build series occasionally on my YouTube channel at Battlefield Bricks as well.
Awesome. Well, everyone can check you out online then and see more of your work. Thank you so much for taking us through all these fantastic scenes here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.